No room for your discount. Store kids at this party. My sister smirked, her words slicing through the festive air, and I watched in horror as my daughter, Lily, her small face crumpling, ran back into the house, sobbing. The echo of her cries still haunts me. Was I wrong for what I did next? Tell me honestly, would you have done the same thing? It all started innocently enough, or so I thought. My sister, Sarah, and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child, prettier, smarter, more popular, or at least, that's how our parents always made it seem. I was the quiet one, the one who preferred books to parties, art to sports. We drifted apart in our 20s, both pursuing different paths. I married Mark, a wonderful, kind-hearted man who works as a high school teacher, and we were blessed with Lily, our bright, sensitive, and utterly amazing daughter. Sarah, on the other hand, married Rich. Her husband, David, is a real estate mogul, and they live in a sprawling mansion that looks like it belongs on a magazine cover. They have 2 boys, Julian and Miles, who are a few years older than Lily. From the moment they were born, Sarah made it clear that her children were somehow superior. Everything they had was designer, every experience curated and exclusive. My heart ached for my daughter, knowing she would never experience that level of material luxury, but we made up for it with love, laughter, and an abundance of genuine joy. We may not have had the biggest house or the fanciest cars, but we had a home filled with warmth. This particular incident unfolded during Sarah's annual summer garden party. It was always a lavish affair, an opportunity for her to showcase her wealth and impeccable taste. Mark and I usually tried to avoid it, honestly. The atmosphere was always a bit stifling, and the thinly veiled judgment from Sarah and her high society friends was exhausting. But this year, she'd sent a personal invitation, explicitly stating, "It wouldn't be a family gathering without you and your little one." Lily, who was 6 at the time, was ecstatic. She loved the idea of a fancy party, and had picked out her favorite sparkly dress, a hand-me-down from a cousin that she absolutely adored. We'd spent the morning braiding her hair, carefully placing little flower clips in it, and her eyes sparkled with anticipation. I remember looking at her, so full of innocent excitement, and my heart swelled with love and a protective instinct that I didn't realize would be tested so severely that day. We arrived at Sarah's mansion, and it was, as always, a spectacle. Valet parking, a string quartet playing soft classical music, caterers circulating with trays of exotic appetizers. Lily's eyes were wide with wonder. She held my hand tightly, a little overwhelmed but thrilled. Sarah greeted us with a forced smile, barely looking at Mark before turning her attention to me. "Oh, you actually made it," she drawled, her gaze lingering on Lily's dress for a beat too long, "and you brought her." The way she said her made my skin crawl. "Of course, Sarah, you invited us," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. Lily was so excited. Sarah just hummed, a dismissive sound, and then gestured vaguely towards the expansive lawn. "Kids are over there, by the bouncy castle." Lily, ever eager, tugged on my hand. "Mommy, can I go play with Julian and Miles?" I nodded, giving her a reassuring squeeze. "Go on, sweetie, have fun." She skipped off, a bright spark of pink and glitter against the manicured green. Mark and I tried to mingle, but it was hard. The conversations revolved around stock portfolios, European vacations, and the latest designer trends, none of which we could relate to. I saw Sarah watching me from across the lawn, a smirk playing on her lips, as if she enjoyed my discomfort. My unease grew when I noticed Julian and Miles, Sarah's sons, were playing a game of catch with some other children, but Lily was standing awkwardly on the sidelines, trying to join in, but constantly being ignored or subtly pushed away. My stomach began to churn. I wanted to go to her, but I also didn't want to make a scene, to confirm Sarah's unspoken judgment that my daughter was somehow less. The afternoon wore on, and Lily's initial excitement slowly faded. I saw her try to engage with her cousins multiple times, but they were either too engrossed in their own games or actively excluded her. At one point, she tried to join a group of girls playing with dolls, but one of Sarah's friend's daughters, a girl named Tiffany, dramatically pulled her doll away, whispering something to her friends that made them all giggle and glance at Lily. My blood was boiling, but I was trying to hold it together, to not cause a scene at Sarah's perfect a party. Mark, bless his heart, noticed my distress and subtly guided me towards a quieter corner of the garden, pretending to be interested in a rose bush. "Are you okay?" he murmured, his hand gently on my back. "Lily's having a tough time," I confessed, my voice tight. "Sarah's kids are being awful," he sighed. "I know, it's always like this. We should have just stayed home." Just as he said that, I saw it happen. Lily, ever resilient, had spotted a beautiful, elaborate dollhouse set up under a gazebo, clearly a gift for Julian or Miles. She approached it cautiously, her eyes wide with admiration. I watched as she tentatively reached out to touch one of the miniature chairs. That's when Sarah walked over, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. "Lily, darling," she cooed, but there was no sweetness in her tone. "Be careful with that. It's a very expensive antique, a gift from David's mother." She paused, letting the words hang in the air, then lowered her voice slightly, though I could still hear every word. "And honestly, this party isn't really for kids who appreciate discount store toys, is it? We wouldn't want it to get damaged." It was a direct hit. The words, the tone, the insinuation, my vision narrowed. Before I could even react, Julian, Sarah's eldest, swaggered over, a smug look on his face. "Yeah, Auntie Sarah's right," he chimed in, echoing his mother's cruelty. "This dollhouse is too good for you, Lily. Go play with your cheap plastic stuff." And then Sarah delivered the final blow, the words that would echo in my mind for weeks. She looked directly at Lily, a cold, hard smirk on her face, and said, "No room for your discount store kids at this party." Lily's face crumpled. It was instantaneous. Her eyes welled up, a fresh wave of tears replacing the earlier glimmer of excitement. She looked at me, a silent plea for help, for protection. Then, without another word, she turned and ran. Not back to me, but into the house, presumably to find a place to hide her shame and hurt. The image of her small, retreating figure, her sparkly dress shimmering as she disappeared, is burned into my memory. My blood ran cold, then boiled. All the years of passive-aggressive comments, the snide remarks, the subtle put-downs, they all coalesced into this single, egregious act of cruelty against my innocent child. Mark was by my side in an instant, his hand on my arm, his face a mask of concern and fury. Sarah, however, just stood there, her smirk still firmly in place, watching Lily disappear as if she'd won some twisted victory. The string quartet played on, oblivious, and the clinking of glasses continued, a jarring soundtrack to the shattering of my daughter's heart. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. What would you do when your child is publicly humiliated by your own sister? Would you walk away and cry with your daughter, or would you stand your ground? I felt a primal roar building inside me. All the suppressed resentment, all the anger I had swallowed over the years, erupted. I walked directly up to Sarah, my eyes locked on hers. Mark, I could feel, was right behind me, his presence a solid, comforting force. Sarah's smirk faltered slightly as she saw the look on my face. She probably expected me to shrink, to retreat, to quietly collect my crying child and leave, just as I had done so many times before when she'd been hurtful. But not this time. This was different. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about my daughter. What did you just say to my daughter? I asked, my voice low and trembling with a rage I rarely allowed myself to feel. My hands were balled into fists, my nails digging into my palms. Sarah, regaining some of her composure, scoffed. "Oh, please, don't be so dramatic. I was just stating a fact. Some children simply aren't accustomed to the finer things in life. It's hardly her fault she comes from a simpler background." She waved her hand dismissively, as if swatting away a fly. That was it. That was the line. Simpler background. I repeated, my voice rising. My daughter has a home filled with love, a father who adores her, and a mother who would walk through fire for her. What does your wealth buy your children, Sarah? Only a sense of entitlement and a complete lack of empathy. Her face hardened. How dare you? This is my party in my house, and you will not speak to me that way. Your party. I countered, my voice now a full, blown shout, drawing the attention of several nearby guests. The string quartet even faltered for a second. You invited us here under false pretenses, just to parade your supposed superiority and to hurt an innocent child. Do you honestly think I would let you get away with making my daughter cry like that? I paused, taking a deep, shaky breath, and then continued, my voice dripping with venom. You know what, Sarah, you're absolutely right. There is no room for discount, store kids at this party, and you know what else. There's no room for a cruel, heartless sister like you in my life. Or in my daughter's. With that, I turned to the nearest catering table, which was laden with Sarah's exquisite, custom-made champagne flutes, all filled with bubbly. Without a moment's hesitation, I swept my arm across the table. Glasses shattered, champagne frothed and spilled everywhere, cascading onto the pristine white tablecloth and soaking the expensive appetizers. A collective gasp rose from the onlookers. Some guests recoiled, others stared in shock. A few even clapped their hands over their mouths. I didn't care. Sarah let out a shriek of pure outrage. Are you insane? Do you know how much that glassware cost? It costs less than my daughter's tears. I roared back. And you know what else? This whole charade, this entire display of your shallow, materialistic existence, means absolutely nothing when you can't even teach your children basic human decency. You wanted to make a statement. Fine, here's mine. Then I turned to the bouncy castle, where Julian and Miles and their friends were still playing, wide-eyed, having witnessed the entire scene unfold. Julian, Miles, I yelled, you two are just as bad as your mother. You made my sweet Lily cry, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. They looked stunned, their faces paling. I knew I probably shouldn't have yelled at them, but in that moment, I honestly didn't care. I felt Mark gently take my arm. Honey, let's go. We need to get Lily. I nodded, my chest still heaving with emotion. As we walked towards the house, I turned back to Sarah one last time. Don't ever, ever contact me again, Sarah. You are dead to me. We found Lily huddled in a corner of one of the guest bathrooms, still sobbing. Mark went to her immediately, pulling her into a comforting hug. I knelt beside them, my anger slowly receding, replaced by a profound sadness and regret that my daughter had to witness such ugliness. I'm so sorry, baby girl, I whispered, stroking her hair. No one has the right to make you feel less than you are. We left the party immediately, without another word to Sarah or any of the guests. The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect. Sarah bombarded my phone with furious texts and voicemails, threatening to sue me for the broken glassware, accusing me of ruining her party, and calling me every name under the sun. My parents, predictably, sided with Sarah, chastising me for my unacceptable behavior and embarrassing the family. They tried to mediate, but I refused to engage. I had drawn my line in the sand. For a while, the silence from Sarah was deafening. Then, about a month later, I received a certified letter from her lawyer, demanding compensation for the damaged property and threatening further legal action. I forwarded it to our own lawyer, a kind man who quickly informed Sarah's legal team that her claims were frivolous and that we would sue for emotional distress caused to a minor if she pursued the matter. The threats eventually stopped. Lily, thankfully, is incredibly resilient. It took some time, but with our love and support, she understood that her worth was not tied to material possessions or the cruel words of her aunt and cousins. We reinforced the idea that kindness and empathy were far more valuable than wealth. She eventually started playing with her friends again, her laughter once more filling our home. We never attended another one of Sarah's parties. In fact, I haven't spoken to Sarah since that day. Our parents still try to get us to reconcile, but I steadfastly refuse. I cannot and will not subject my daughter to that kind of toxic environment ever again. The cost of maintaining a superficial family tie was simply too high. Looking back, do I regret smashing those glasses? Not one bit. It was a visceral, emotional reaction, yes, but it was also a powerful statement. It was the moment I finally stood up for myself and, more importantly, for my child. It was the moment I realized that protecting my daughter's emotional well-being was far more important than maintaining a facade of family harmony. My daughter deserved to be defended, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. The peace of mind, knowing that Lily is safe from Sarah's toxicity, is worth more than all the champagne flutes in the world. So, that's my story. I've laid it all out there. Like this video if you were on my side, if you understand why I did what I did. Subscribe for more stories like this, where real people face real challenges and make tough choices. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Tell me truly, was I wrong? I'll see you all in the next story.